US President Joe Biden's election campaign seems to be sinking like the Titanic. His latest gaffes have become a subject of jokes and memes on the internet, a source of huge embarrassment for his administration, a massive political headache for his campaign, and the latest indisputable evidence for his party that President Biden has become a liability. Biden decided to address a press conference on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Washington earlier today in the hope of boosting his public image and the deflated morale of the Democrats, and hoping to convince his detractors and supporters that he can still serve as president for 4 more years. Instead, he ended up embarrassing himself and the party. Biden referred to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Yes, you heard that right. He confused his own vice president with his bitter Republican rival, Donald Trump. The look on the faces of Biden's top officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, had to be seen to be believed. And that's not all. In his speech at the NATO summit, Biden introduced Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy as President Putin. No, we're not making it up. He actually said it. The world leaders present there looked visibly shocked. Zelenskyy didn't know where to look. He smiled sheepishly while shaking his head in disbelief. While Biden corrected himself, the damage was done. Bad enough to launch 1,000 memes on the social media and to raise fresh questions about his age and cognitive decline. These are issues that are threatening Biden's presidential campaign. Predictably, his opponent Donald Trump immediately took note of the slip-ups and mocked Biden on the social media, saying, and I quote, "Crooked Joe begins his big boy press conference with, 'I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. Great job, Joe.'" Republicans quickly capitalized on this faux pas, sharing video clips on social media that have since gone viral. There were a number of questions at the news conference about the growing concern over his candidacy, but Biden simply brushed them aside by telling reporters he's the most qualified person to run for president. At times, he sounded angry and offended by the questions over his fitness for office. Biden thundered, "I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat Donald Trump once and I will beat him again. There's a long way to go in this campaign, and so I'm just going to keep moving." While Biden continues to put on a brave face and insists on staying in the race, the clamor for his exit is growing louder by the day and is now turning into a cacophony that could become difficult to ignore. At least 17 House Democrats have already called on Biden to step aside. If the news conference was aimed at keeping lawmakers from abandoning the president, it didn't quite work. The top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Jim Himes, called on Biden to step aside almost at the exact time the news conference ended. He was the first House Democrat to call on the president to leave the ticket after the news conference, but not the last. He said on social media platform X, "It is because of those traits and in consideration of that legacy that I hope President Biden will step away from the presidential campaign." Not long after Himes, California Democrat Representative Scott Peters issued a call for Biden to withdraw his candidacy. Illinois Representative Eric Sorensen soon after became the 17th Democrat on Capitol Hill to call for Biden to step aside. He said in 2020, Joe Biden ran for president with the purpose of putting country over party. Today, I'm asking him to do that again. And now reports have emerged suggesting that the most high-profile Democrat and Biden's former boss and close friend, none other than former President Barack Obama, too has expressed concerns about where the current president's campaign is headed and what it means for the party. Reports say Obama and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have spoken privately about Joe Biden and the future of his campaign. Both have expressed concerns about how much harder they think it has become for President Biden to beat Donald Trump, and neither is quite sure what to do. Some reports say that Hollywood superstar and Democratic fundraiser George Clooney, who recently wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times urging Biden to step aside, had run the piece past Obama before it was published. Does that mean that President Biden may have even lost the support of his strongest champion, Obama? Democrats are desperate for the infighting to end so they can get back to trying to beat Trump in the November election. And they are reportedly begging either Obama or Pelosi to help them. Many of Pelosi's colleagues are hoping that she can bring an end to the turmoil that has engulfed Democrats over the last 2 weeks since Biden's disastrous debate performance against Trump. Many of them want Pelosi to tell Biden that he has to drop out of the race. While publicly he may be supporting Biden, many say Obama's deepening skepticism about his friend's ability to win the upcoming election is one of the worst kept secrets in Washington. Obama's hands-off approach, at least publicly, has been seen by some close to him as a way to keep his powder dry in case he needs to have a blunt and difficult conversation with Biden. George Clooney wrote in the New York Times piece, Biden was the same man we all witnessed at the debate, imploring Biden to step aside. It is those words that infuriated some Biden loyalists who suggested that Obama was actually behind Clooney's op-ed. The former president, who is friendly with the actor, was aware that this piece was coming, but did not try to stop it, say reports. To some Obama defenders, that was a way of preserving his neutrality, but to some Biden loyalists, it was a mark of deep betrayal. The question is, whatever they may say publicly, have the Democrats had enough of Joe Biden?